Hey guys, Miss Jagger here, and as you can see, we're in Armored Warfare. And not only are we in Armored Warfare, we're in Armored Warfare patch 0.14. And currently in the replay system. Huzzah! Yes, we are in the replay system which was introduced. It's still a work in progress, so there's probably going to be a couple of glitches, a few features that aren't introduced yet, but it's a replay system. And it's already better than World of Tanks' replay system and War Thunder's to a certain extent. Reasons why? Free cam! I know it sounds stupid, and I know that Wargaming don't officially support the replay, but god freaking damn it, I love the free cam system. It makes a YouTuber's work so much easier. It sounds really bad, but it's like, before this patch came out, whenever I wanted to get a thumbnail, I just went to real-life imagery because it was way easier to work with, a lot faster to work with. Because if you wanted to go into Armored Warfare to take a thumbnail in Armored Warfare, you would either have to get an extremely lucky position where you could stand still in a game, turn off your heads-up display, which, by the way, is F2, for any of you wondering, and then pose for a few seconds whilst you pressed what you thought was the camera button for the screenshots. And now this is all during a game. You couldn't pause it, so you'd have to pose correctly. Whereas now, you could play any kind of game you want with this thing, and it would work. And the reason why I love this even more is because free cam! It's just, oh, so loving it. So freaking loving it. Absolutely awesome. Another cool thing is that you actually now get to watch all the replays you got inside Armored Warfare. This actually is an in-game thing. You don't have to turn off Armored Warfare and then boot it up again in the form of an exe to the replay files, which is kind of nice. Now, as for whether or not it's compatible across patches, well, it's only just been released, so I imagine we're probably going to get the same issues as World of Tanks, maybe, where you can't watch something from a previous patch. However, it's early days, and it's also, as I said, work in progress. There's a few things you can't do, but apart from that, it's fantastic. The fact that this thing has a free cam mod makes this not better instantly than World of Tanks, but it makes it a lot more enjoyable than World of Tanks, because I'm not going to lie, being stuck to this view is annoying. I mean, the view at the moment is not too great, but you can also follow other people as well, which is quite nice. So, yeah, I would say being stuck in this view is a bit frustrating. But we're not. We're no longer doing that. We can actually now press the space bar, and you can now fly around, which is awesome. Speaking of which, if you speaking of which, if you hold the left control, let's actually watch this particular replay, because you know what? Why not? So, we're on a cooperative map, and I am platooned up with Bidden War in the Challenger 1 Wolf, one of the new premium Tier 7 tanks, which costs a fair amount of gold. So you could argue a bit of a money-making thing, but it's pretty much a fully upgraded Challenger 1, so you can still get this. The only benefits that this thing gets is that it is a premium vehicle, so you get a slightly more cash into the game, but still, you can get this vehicle, so it's, for those arguing it's a pay-to-win, yes, you've got a premium vehicle, but it's no different to the Challenger 1 in the standard game. So Bidden's in this lovely little beast, and Nimbus is in the Centauro 120 Wolf, which is pretty much the same thing. As I said, you can get this tank in-game, and it's a fully upgraded version of that, so there's no real thing. The only difference, really, is that you can't give any special camos to it, except, like, the vinyls on the side. But, yeah, you can't put any winter camos on the side. That actually looks pretty cool. I'm taking a screenshot. Nimbus, you're famous. Anyway, so we're in this game. We're all platooned up. And I'm in my BMP Terminator. Now, this vehicle at the moment you can't get because this was part of the Founders Pack. So, without further ado, let's get started. Oh, bit of a glitch there. So, the objective of this particular engagement is we need to roll into this refinery that is currently being held by a large group of bad guys, we're not entirely sure who, that is currently controlling the section. Now, we've only just started this mission, so things should be interesting. Now, the BMPT Terminator is... it's a very good tank. I actually quite enjoy utilizing this thing. It's got two 30mm auto cannons and 4 separately mounted missile launchers. As you can see, fire on. And unfortunately, the Leopard 2A5, I think, has ERA armor or APS systems engaged, so unfortunately you can't really attack it too much with these sort of things. But luckily for us, myself, I was keeping busy, and Bidden and Nimbus were also engaging. Bidden set it on fire, and I stole the kill with the missile, because why? I'm a scumbag. But so far, we've made initial contact engagements. Another awesome thing about this particular tank is that this thing has a lot of spaced armor on the top. So even if you're approaching your enemies, even if you're approaching the enemy, you can actually take a lot of abuse from the enemy. You could take a lot of abuse from them without receiving too much damage. There are a few weak points on this thing for those who are curious. If I just pause it, apart from the sides and the rear, there's also this little frontal section. Oh, let's just zoom in. There we go. Apart from this there's this little frontal section here, which is flat enough that you can. Oops. I know to get used to this thing now. Which is flat enough for you to be able to penetrate and do full damage of if you're on that. There's the enemy Ramka 99, tier 8 variant. I'd like to get that actually. That is a lot of fun. As you can see, his shots aren't doing too much of a damage, and I'm basically taking my time getting the missiles in. And the missile system is actually quite nice. Relatively quick reload on them. At that point, I made the mistake of not reloading the missiles, so I only had 1 shot remaining. Nimbus unfortunately started to get outflanked with the Stingray 2, but luckily we weren't too far behind, and we were able to pop that little bastard on the side. Enemy Ramka, determined as ever to become a nuisance, but luckily for me, I was able to get a good few shots in with my armor-piercing 30mm loadout. Now, during just a couple of things regarding the patch didn't just introduce the replay system. They've also introduced a couple of new features, such as a sort of a general buff to some of the lighter vehicles and some of the tank destroyers, which previously weren't really faring too well in the high-tier games. I think at least tier 6 and above now, we might start seeing slightly more powerful tank destroyers. The M8, by the way, if you are fearing about that, is still the same, and I think so is some of the other relatively successful tank destroyers out there. But for everything else, even stuff like the Stingray has received a buff to not only the top ammunition that they get, but also the stock ammunition. So it gives them a lot more of a competitive edge when it comes to being utilized in combat. And there's me making a grand mistake of charging straight into it when 3 enemy main battle tanks start saying hi. So I designate the vehicle to my exact front, and unfortunately I'm unable to hit anything with my missiles, so I say fuck you. And 3 missiles in, none of them doing anything, so I'm like, right, sod you lot, I'm out of here. Ah! So I take cover behind Bidden. Now, this particular map is called Operation Banshee, but it was really enough one of my favorite maps because there isn't any artillery to deal with in this, and you get thrown into the deep end with a whole shit ton of enemy vehicles. And they will surround you on all sides. And as you can see, I use my new repair ability, which costs about 25,000 credits, which, if you're alive, it will restore you to 100% health and 100% ammunition. It will also restore your ammunition to 100% as well. So I'm trying to get shots in on the VFM Mark V, but unfortunately not too successfully. And that's also one of those features introduced to patch 0.14. I mean, it's a fairly big patch. It was about 3.4 gigs now, which is not bad. Which is, fairly largeable size. So whilst I'm just reloading, waiting for my missiles to get into position, I'm like blah 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 blah. And I throw some smoke in the way because enemy tanks are approaching Bidden's position. I'm trying to keep him busy. I mean, obviously this probably isn't doing us any favors, probably only helping the enemy out, but unfortunately I run out of ammo on the side. Luckily artillery takes him out on that one, and Nimbus in his Centauro decides to charge, and I basically am trying to load up my system, firing my missiles. Come on, come on, come on. Bam! There he goes. But unfortunately, Nimbus is also taken out by the M8 Thunderbolt. So that thing is still a bitch. Luckily for me, the Leopard 2A6's missile does miss and hits the guardhouse. And the enemy Superior Stingray decides to make an appearance. Unfortunately, then, I am tracked. So, regretfully, I am sort of stuck. But luckily for me, the wreck of his allies is actually providing me useful, and he decides also that he wants to be shot by me. So I'm like, I am not complaining. But unfortunately, he does get a cheeky shot into one of my weak spots, dealing me a very nasty amount of damage. Once again, I am tracked. Ammunition is out, but luckily for me, I am able to be saved by our BMD. So now I've got my arse is now hanging with two leopards on it, so I'm a little bit nervous. But yeah, this particular map I absolutely love. It is a majorly awesome map because it is literally just weather the storm and try and survive as much as possible against a whole shit ton of bad guys, which is glorious. And utilizing the Terminator in this engagement is actually a lot of fun, especially when encountering stuff such as the Leopard 2A6, where you're kind of going against higher tier opponents agreeably, but this thing actually can handle itself fairly well against those circumstances. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that she's invulnerable to all forms of damage, but at the same time, makes it... Oh god, that was a bit of a close one. Makes it a little bit more... Makes it more viable, which is nice. And I just love this missile system. It's so useful. It's like, oh no, you don't, bitch. But yeah, and there we go. So unfortunately, misangled there. Wasn't really paying attention to what was still around, so unfortunately I died. But luckily for my friends, we had still got some backup. The BMD-4 as well had just done the bonus objective, and actually something rather amusing happens in a couple of seconds. Bidden there, at this point, had only just purchased the Challenger 1 Wolf, or had someone, I think one of his mates, bought it for him. And it's roughly around this point, I think he realized he'd run out of ammunition and had no consumables to resupply. So he decides, fuck it, let's go and charge into the base and start capping. So, whilst Bidden is attracting the most aggro and attention, the artillery and the BMD decide to just enjoy the damage that they're now getting. So the Thunderbolt is now down. Leopard 2A6 tries to pop the shells. Ramka 99 popping shells as much as possible. And so now we're just going to start the caps, so that way we are guaranteed a victory should our BMD and Panzer Th 2000 is unable to do so. But because Bidden is capping, he has now drawn the attention of the AI, which means that it pretty much is free damage now with the BMD and the Panzer 2000, which is absolutely hilarious. So we're just sort of sitting there as Bidden just gets some free damage. And that Leopard tank... Oh, starting to pay a bit more attention now. BMD makes a bit of a mistake coming around the rear, but he's got a lot of health anyway, so he should be fine. Turret has been damaged, unfortunately. But autocannon firing. Artillery going absolutely ham on that Leopard 2A6. And that's the ball game. So... there you go, guys. A bit of a shorter video than usual today, but I thought, because considering that the rest of the patch is just a clutch of balances and fixes and all that jazz, it's more of a thing which I will obviously put the patch notes into the description. But the biggest thing that I'm loving so far is just the fact that we've got a free, we've got a replay system with a free camera, and I love it. It is absolutely fantastic to work with, and I'm looking forward to showing more of the other stuff around this sort of thing. But for now, today, as it's Easter holidays and I kind of want to enjoy playing alongside my good friends I haven't actually been able to see for a while, thanks to work being absolutely batshit crazy, I will bid you adieu. And at the time of this recording, have a lovely Easter, and I hope to see you guys later on. This is Miss Jagger, signing out.